In this video, we're going to take a look at understanding polygons. I'm going to create a primitive polygon sphere, and we'll use this just as an example so that we can take a look at all of the individual parts and components that make up a polygon object. So first of all, when we select the object, we're looking at the object's wireframe as well as its shaded view. But making this object up are several different components. When I right mouse click on the object, I bring up a context-sensitive marking menu. And what all that means is that as I'm hovering over the object, it knows what object type I'm hovering over, so it gives me the correct marking menu for this object type. So we can see here that I can choose from many different components that make up this object. So first, we have vertex. When I switch to a vertex selection mode, and let's open up our move tool, I can see all of the individual vertices that make up this object. Now currently I have a couple of things turned on here, like symmetry. I'm going to just shut that off. And then we're also seeing some more color there. That's coming from soft selection. Let's select a single vertex, and then we can see we can get a manipulator for that single point. And then I can move it just as I would move any object. We can grab an individual component and do the same thing. Now, when we get close to a component, we get a pre-selection highlight, and we can see that there in red. This lets me know what I'm about to click on or alter. Now, I'm pretty close, so I can only pick one component at this point. But if we look in areas that have denser geometry, and I'm going to have to kind of zoom out here a little bit. And let's just look at that top row, that ring that goes around there. I'm going to hit Q just to turn off that move tool. It's very difficult to see which component that I'm actually going to be clicking on. So that little pre-selection highlight helps tremendously. We're looking at it from a distance, but imagine that this geometry was just denser, meaning that we have a lot more points defining the surface. When we start getting into complex modeling, we will have tens of thousands, even millions of these points. And then that pre-selection highlight becomes really, really useful to let us know what we're going to select. So with that, all I need to do is get in proximity, and then I can left click, and you can see that vertex was selected, but I never actually moved my mouse directly over it. So again, if I go down to this one, just right here, I'll left click, boom, I've just selected it. I can then hit W, and then I can middle mouse and move that around. So I don't even need to click directly on the manipulator either. Next component that we have here are edges. Now, there really isn't one or the other that we always work in, but I think probably vertices or vertex is going to be your most common path that you're going to take to make alterations to a model. As you work with it, you'll soon see that this would be easier for me just to grab an edge. The reason for this is that the edge is actually manipulating two vertices when we move a single edge. So you can see here that the vertex would be at the intersection of these four edges, and same thing over here. So when I move this, they both move. And we can grab edges and rotate and scale them just like what we would do with a normal object. We cannot rotate and scale a single vertex. But if you were to hold shift and select two of them, well, then we could. Our next component, we're going to right mouse click again, and I'm going to go to face, and face gives me the actual shaded part of my geometry. Now, a face is made up of triangles, and there's actually two triangles making up this selected face right here. And that triangle, it's just an invisible line that splits this rectangular shape in half. And it could go either way. It could be in this direction, or it could be splitting it in this direction. We can actually turn this on, but for the most part, that's just going to be a lot of clutter on our screen, and we don't need to see that just yet. But faces, we can scale and rotate, and you can see here, now I'm manipulating 4 vertices that are connected to this single face. Now, for the most part, we want our faces to all be what we call a quad, meaning that it has 4 edges that go around it. As you can see up here, these are triangles, 3 edges. We can still work with that. We mix triangles and quads all the time, but our goal is to have things always as a quad. We don't always achieve that goal. That's okay. But that's our ultimate pipeline. And we want to do that because, first of all, it's an even number. It divides evenly for a lot of the more complex things that we have to do. But also, the quad deforms better. It creates nice, even rows. That's what we're looking for in good geometry. And if we look at the triangle is very evenly spaced. We got a nice pie there, but they're going to bend awkwardly because we have all these little extra divisions in here. And the triangle is the smallest denomination of our geometry. We can't get any smaller than the triangle. So we like to work one level up from that and stay in quads, basically 2 triangles. Next, we have UV. Now we can select UV and they're going to show up, and notice that our UVs are all located exactly where our vertices are located. Now the UV is primarily used for wrapping a texture or an image around the object. They are basically texture coordinates. We cannot grab these on the model and move these around. So it's nice to see them here, but for the most part, we want to just use this for UV selection, and we manipulate those UVs in a completely different editor, the UV texture editor. So I can select them here, but I cannot manipulate them. Coming back over here, this one is just a display, and this is called vertex face. What this allows me to see is an exploded view of my model. This is nice because this shows me if there's any hidden geometry inside of our object. When we look right now, it looks pretty good. We don't really see anything going on in there. And this is a good model because it's a primitive object. But I'm going to take this here and let's just screw things up a bit. Just going to select a face, and I'm going to fly ahead here and just grab a tool. So I just hit extrude. That extrude was added, but I'm not going to do anything with it. Okay, so basically the extrude here is just duplicating some faces, and we can't tell anything really happened there. But now I'll go back to vertex face. Look at the difference. We can now see that there's definitely something inside there. I have additional edges surrounding this particular face. So that's what this vertex face mode allows us to see. Again, we really can't manipulate anything here. It's really just kind of a troubleshooting display, and it can be very useful. Just going to look at one more thing here. Let's just create a new scene. We don't need to save that. And I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, and I'm going to choose Create Polygon. And it tells me click to place a vertex. And so I will do so. And this is kind of like drawing out a curve, except what we're doing is drawing out a polygon. So we'll just click and we'll create a quad. There we have a triangle, but if I click one more time, now I have a quad. I hit enter and that completes it. And you can see there's vertices, edges, and faces. Now, it's entirely possible that we can create an object with more than 4 sides. We consider this an n-sided object. After 4 sides, we kind of stop counting. We don't really care how many sides it has after 4. We just know that's not optimal. It's too much. I want to take this and either delete it or break it down. So I could split an edge here, or I could just redraw it. But all of these will be techniques that we look at later.